event. Radio Algeria International, our voice in the world.
This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
The Algerian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the National Community Abroad and African Affairs has stressed that the French-Moroccan military maneuvers project near the Algerian border is an act of provocation towards Algeria. In the occupied West Bank, the Zionist occupying forces attacked early today several mosques in the old city of Nablus, preventing the Al-Fajr or dawn prayers from taking place while arresting 3 Palestinians during an incursion into the city. And the Sudanese army has announced that it has regained control of several regions in the states of White Nile, Sinnar, and Blue Nile in the south of the country after fighting with the Rapid Support Forces. Those were the headlines, and now the news in detail from Radio Algeria International. First, the Secretary General of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the National Community Abroad and African Affairs, Lounes Megraman, has received at the headquarters of the ministry the Ambassador of France to Algiers, Stéphane Romate, said a statement from the ministry. This meeting aimed to draw the attention of the French diplomat on the seriousness of the Franco-Moroccan military maneuvers project Chergui 2025, whose name is very evocative, slated for next September in Rashidiyah, not far from the Algerian border. The Secretary General explained to his interlocutor that this exercise is perceived by the Algerian side as an act of provocation towards Algeria. He added that such an act will not fail to fuel the crisis that now characterizes the Algerian-French relations and bring the climate of tensions between the two countries to a higher threshold of gravity and seriousness. While requesting the ambassador of France to obtain the necessary clarifications on this subject, the Secretary General invited him to transmit to his hierarchy the position of Algeria as expressed to him. The Speaker of the Council of the Nation, Salah Koujil, has presided over a ceremony on the occasion of the International Women's Day, celebrated on the 8th of March, according to a statement from the Upper House of Parliament. Organized in honor of the women of the Council of the Nation among its members, executives, officials and workers, as well as a group of representatives of the national media, the ceremony took place in the presence of the Minister of Relations with the Parliament, Kautar Krikou, the Deputy Speaker of the Council of the Nation, Najia Ouadjidji, or Dramji, and the committee chairs several members of the Council of the Nation and former senators. On the occasion, Salah Koujil stated that Algeria's celebration of its free women is an entrenched national tradition and a vigorous reaffirmation of the preeminent place of the Algerian women in history, society and national policies. 2 students were killed and 9 injured in a traffic accident which took place yesterday in the province of Tiaret, according to the Civil Protection Department. The head of communication, Lieutenant Abdurrahman Mansour, said that the accident, which was the result of a collision between a school bus and a truck with a trailer, occurred in Mohraf area on the provincial road number 2 between the localities of Frenda and Medrisa. Following this tragic road accident, the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmadjid Tebboune, sent his heartfelt condolences to the families of the victims on the road accident, in which 2 students died and 33 other people were injured. Now, the platform of French NGOs for Palestine has called on France to demand that the Zionist entity immediately restores the entry of humanitarian aid to the Gaza Strip. By suspending the entry of humanitarian aid into the Palestinian enclave, the Zionist entity is endangering the lives of 2 million Palestinians currently living in the Gaza Strip who are dependent on humanitarian aid for their survival, warns this coalition of French NGOs in solidarity with Palestine. The coalition points out that the Geneva Conventions of 1949 and their additional protocols indicate that the parties to a conflict must authorize and facilitate the rapid and unimpeded passage of humanitarian relief supplies to civilians in need. It also recalls that on January 26, 2024, the International Court of Justice, ICJ, ordered the Zionist entity to allow the supply of humanitarian aid to the Gaza Strip as part of the proceedings brought by South Africa against this entity for the implementation of the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide in the Gaza Strip. Now, the Canadian branch of the non-governmental organization Oxfam has denounced the blocking of the delivery of humanitarian aid to Gaza Strip as an irresponsible act of collective punishment prohibited by international humanitarian law. The decision by the Zionist entity to block the delivery of aid to more than 2 million Palestinians in the Gaza Strip at the beginning of Ramadan is an irresponsible act of collective punishment explicitly prohibited by international humanitarian law, the NGO said in a press release. The NGO points out that the Zionist entity, as the occupying power, has a responsibility to ensure that humanitarian aid can reach the people of Gaza. And the Zionist occupation army has demolished several houses and burned down others in the Jenin refugee camp, Wafa news agency reported. Local sources said the Zionist occupation army bulldozers demolished more than 4 houses since Thursday morning in the Fallujah and Zamran neighborhoods in the center of the camp and have laid roads inside the camp. Images and videos also showed smoke rising from houses in the camp as the siege and aggression continued for the 45th day consecutive or in a row. And still in the occupied Palestinian territory, the West Bank, particularly the Zionist occupying forces, attacked early today several mosques in the old city of Nablus, preventing the Al-Fajr or dawn prayers from taking place, and arrested 3 Palestinians during an incursion into the city, according to the Palestinian news agency Wafa. More details with our colleague Saad Bougazi.
Zionist occupation vehicles stormed several areas of the city of Nablus and its old town, firing live ammunition, stun grenades, and toxic gas bombs, said Palestinian sources quoted by Wafa. During the incursion, the occupying soldiers ransacked several mosques, including the As-Satoun Mosque, the Ajaj Mosque, the Great Salah ad-Din Mosque, the At-Tina Mosque, the An-Nasr Mosque, and the El-Baik Mosque, all located in the Old City. The Palestinian Ministry of Religious Affairs and Waqf, or endowments, strongly condemned these incursions, describing them as an unprecedented escalation taking place in the middle of the month of Ramadan. The ministry denounced a blatant violation of religious values and an attack on the right to worship. These dangerous incursions, both in terms of their scale and timing, are a measure of the Zionist occupation aimed at desecrating our holy places, the ministry denounced in a statement. This is a blatant disregard for human rights, in particular the right to freedom of worship, it continued. The ministry called on the international community and human rights organizations to intervene to put an end to these violations, pointing out that in addition to being places of worship, these mosques are historical and cultural monuments threatened by the ongoing Zionist aggression. During their incursion into neighborhoods in Nablus, Zionist forces also ransacked several houses before arresting citizens.
Shifting now to Africa, where the Sudanese army has announced that it has regained control of several regions in the state of White Nile, Sennar and Blue Nile in the south of the country after fighting with the Rapid Support Forces, media have reported citing a military source. An army spokesman said in a statement that the Sudanese armed forces had succeeded in a simultaneous and coordinated operation to neutralize the Rapid Support Forces in several regions of the 3 states. Saad Bougazi reports again.
The Sudanese army spokesman said that the army had taken back by force and with determination the towns of Dali and El Mazmoum in Sennar state, as well as the regions of Paro, El Qarbin and Kali in Blue Nile state, and the areas of El Jafrat, El Melissa and Abu Arif in White Nile state. With the recapture of the towns of Dadi and El Mazmoum, the army now controls Sennar state, which borders South Sudan, although small pockets of resistance from the Rapid Support Forces persist in White Nile and Blue Nile states. By November 2024, the army had recaptured most of Sinnar state and its capital Sangha, with the exception of the towns of Jali and El Mazmoum. For several weeks now, the area under the control of the Rapid Support Forces has rapidly decreased to the benefit of the army in the states of Khartoum, El Jazeera, North Kordofan, and White Nile. In Khartoum state, which includes 3 major cities, the army now fully controls the city of Bahri in the north, most of the city of Omdurman to the west, as well as 75% of central Khartoum, where the presidential palace and the international airport are located. However, the Rapid Support Forces continue to hold the eastern and southern districts of the capital. Since April 2023, the Sudanese army and the Rapid Support Forces have been engaged in a deadly conflict that has claimed more than 20,000 lives, while nearly 15 million people have been displaced or have become refugees, according to the United Nations and the local authorities.
And finally, the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC, is celebrating the 50th anniversary of the historic summit of leaders of member countries held from the 4th to the 6th of March 1975 in Algeria, which provided a crucial opportunity to discuss strategic issues related to the oil market and international energy cooperation, said Bougazigan.
The summit was held under the chairmanship of the late President Houari Boumediene, with the participation of the leaders of OPEC member countries, including Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Iran, Kuwait, Venezuela, Libya, Nigeria, Indonesia, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, and Ecuador. The summit, a decisive turning point in the history of the organization, made it possible to reinforce the sovereignty of producing countries over their natural resources and to promote their role in shaping a new global economic system. Among the most important decisions taken at the summit was the establishment of a more in-depth dialogue with consumer countries and international institutions to ensure market stability and the creation of a mechanism for economic cooperation between oil producer countries to strengthen economic development and diversify the economy, the member countries having underlined the necessity to reinforce their control over the exploitation and marketing of their oil resources. The member countries also decided to create an OPEC Fund for International Development, OFID, as an initiative to support developing countries through financing and technical assistance in order to strengthen solidarity between producer countries and the least developed economies. 50 years on, OPEC is continuing its efforts to ensure a balanced and viable oil market by adapting its strategies to today's challenges. In its comments via social networks, OPEC stated that this anniversary is an opportunity to remember the relevant vision and deep commitment of the leaders who have made up the history of the organization, and to reaffirm OPEC's determination to continue their journey in the service of the interests of producer countries and the world's energy markets.
And with this, we'll come to the end of this news bulletin for today. Time now for a weekly program, starting with my colleague Jamal Silmani. A program on Islam in Africa will be followed by another program by my colleague Mohammed Raswan on Ramadan, the special holy fasting month of Ramadan. As for me, I'll meet you again tomorrow. Thank you, and Sahaftarkum.